So we start with the two halves of the dome of the helmet. I'm using silicon bronze as the material, and I have these two cutouts, two kind of triangular dome-ish pieces that I'm using that I got from a template. I'll link that in the description. Every time I go around the circle, I'll anneal it so it becomes soft again, so I can do another round of hammering without it cracking. You can tell here just how much the middle does not curve easily. So the middle has to take a lot of hammering to get that dome shape. So it takes a lot of rounds of hammering and annealing to get the middle to get pushed out as far as it needs to be. I'm using a dishing stump that I made out of 4x4s that I just ground into with a 7-inch flap disc and made a small indentation that I'm using to dish out the helmet halves. So I'm using a different hammer here to kind of begin planishing, I guess. It's not really considered planishing because it's still sinking. Here I made a stake out of a 12-pound shot put for more planishing. I didn't use the shot put as much as I used the dishing stump, so if you're going to make something like this, make the dishing stump first, and you might be able to use something else for planishing, because that 12-pound shot put is not very necessary. You have to have more material than you're going to be using, so you have to cut off parts to make the two halves match. So I'm using a TIG welder and a silicon bronze filler to tack weld it and get it as close as I can, and then I'll go around the entire section and fill it in with brazing material. Here I'm starting on the faceplate. I made a copy of the curve of the front of the helmet so I can match the faceplate to that. I made a practice one with a material I'm not going to use, and then I started on this one, which is the silicon bronze piece, and I'm using 3 2x4s screwed together as a dishing stump just in one direction to give me that curve for the front of the faceplate. This right here comes down over my eyes, so I'm cutting it away and it will be replaced with the faceplate. Here I have the faceplate clamped on, and I'm checking my eye holes and everything to see before I tack weld it. Here I'm starting on the piece that will cover the back of the neck. This was actually the most complicated piece to make because it bends in three directions. It curves around the perimeter of the helmet, then it curves up the dome of the helmet, and then it curves back out over the neck. So I'm using a combination of the dishing stump, my anvil, the shot put stake, and my vise to make this piece fit. And it's a pretty complicated shape. It's the hardest piece that I've done to date. So every time you try and bend it in one direction, the other two directions kind of get out of whack. So you have to anneal it again and kind of stretch the material to do what it needs to do. So I got the shape almost down, so I'm making room for my ear holes. So here I'm flaring the edge even more so that it can't cut into my neck when I look up. Here I'm just making marks so that I can cut away unnecessary material and be ready for the brazing in a minute. So now that I got the back piece tacked on and it fits my head pretty well, I'm gonna go ahead and take braze all around the inside for the faceplate and all around the outside for the back part so that they're fully one piece. So for the back piece, I used a flap disc and a random orbit sander to blend the braze into the dome of the helmet so that it's less noticeable. Now that all three pieces are TIG welded together, I can finish up the eye holes, which are pretty rough at the moment, and then cut the front slit for the mouth opening and nasal guard. Sanding the inside of the mouth slit was pretty difficult, but I was able to do it on my belt grinder for most of it. Here I used the random orbit sander on whole of the outside just to give it a uniform look and to take some pictures because it's going to oxidize quickly, and that will show up later. Here I'm cleaning out the inside so that I can mount the pads that I ordered off of Amazon. I'll link those in the description so that it'll be centered on my head and be at the right height for the eye holes. It's hard to tell with this lighting, but I have the large center pad on the top, and then I have 6 of the medium-sized pads around the outside just to keep it centered and from rotating around in my head. Here I'm pre-drilling holes for the chin strap. I got a cheap chin strap off of Amazon for like 13 bucks. Worked out approximately where it's going to be. Drilled the holes and tried it on. Then I ordered some brass M6 bolts off of eBay and then ground them down and rounded them out just so they don't look like standard bolts. So here's the helmet. I let it kind of oxidize. I haven't been polishing it at all, just to see what color it would turn. Kind of a greenish, brownish, which I like. The brass bolts are still pretty bright. I heated them up with the torch to try and oxidize them a little bit, but they're still quite a bit shinier than the helmet. As for the fit, fits quite nicely. The pads do a good job of keeping it on my head. Chin strap, I really don't use it that much when I put it on. So usually I keep it tucked out on the back so that it's out of the way. And I can put it on and take it off without messing with it. So it's in the back and out of the way, like that. And it covers the back 2 bolts for the back of the chin strap. If I ever, do any HEMA or anything like that, I'd tighten up the chin strap. But walking around the house with it, it's really just out of the way back here. And for the eye holes, if you're going to make them, I'd make them kind of lower. It's easier to see. It's better to see down than up because you can look your head up. Because when you look down, you just kind of hit your chest and you're still kind of limited on what you can see. Like over here, not greatest vision over here, but ahead of you in the center, pretty good vision. Right here is kind of a, kind of like a big nose, but you can see past it. Side to side, I can see right here. That's the extent of my vision. Is right at where I cut it. But if you're going to do like the Corinthian style eye holes versus the Spartan ones, you may lose some of that peripheral vision. As for the dome, you can tell where the seam is if you look at it, but from afar you really can't. The weld on the inside is kind of ugly, but can't really see that. The back piece
Has a nice curve to it so that when looking up, it doesn't hit you at all. The only part that hits you are really these parts right here. Other than that, I can turn my head as far as I can naturally. So all together, the only thing that's kind of different than historical ones is usually this nasal part is super thick. Like if you look at historical finds, it's like a 1/4 inch thick. This one's only 18 gauge, so it's definitely going to be bent a lot easier. And for that reason, I bent it out so it sticks out, just so it doesn't hit my nose. I might in the future get a face shield and either put it on the outside or the inside and either tint it like the Mandalorian kind of helmets are, just to provide protection to the eyes. I can't really wear glasses with these because they stick out of the eye holes, but I might get contacts or just deal with it. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comment. I'll try and add all the links that I use to reference this helmet if you want to make one for yourself. If you're going to make one yourself, I'd probably recommend you using steel. It's a lot cheaper than the silicon bronze. The bronze I got from a company called Atlas Metals, and it was pretty expensive. So I recommend using just 18 gauge sheet metal and going after it. It's a lot easier to TIG weld. It's the only thing you have to worry about is rust. That's the only difference. That's kind of the reason why I went with the bronze, is the rust isn't going to be or the oxidation isn't going to be as bad of a problem as it is with the iron one. But other than that, I'm loving it, and I wear it around the house all the time. So leave a comment below, and I hope you like it. Thanks.